Here we are, and this is the most exciting part of my week. So let's get started. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Kayuri Anand. Let me quickly show you who I am, where I come from, really quickly. I'm an AI products leader. I have been working in the AI product space for a number of years. And currently, I'm working as a director of AI products at Applied Systems. I've been teaching AI and product management over the last 5 years or so. And I sit on a couple of product related boards. Um, just to have a involvement in shaping the field as AI is evolving very, very fast. Um, I stopped sharing because I want to be able to talk to you. The reason I teach is because I have been everything that you saw. I don't have a computer science degree. I'm a non-technical person. Everything that you saw on that page, I taught myself, and I truly believe that AI is such a level setter that everyone can know and build and get to a point where I am. On a separate note, as an AI products director, I get to frame product strategy for AI products. One question that keeps me up for the last few weeks is who's going to execute on these strategies? If people don't know how to use these tools, who's going to execute on these strategies? So combining both of those, that's my why. That's why I continue to show up Saturday after Saturday, and that's why this is the most exciting part of my day. Quick question, and you guys can drop it in the chat as we talk about this. What are all the different domains that you are all from? Like I said, I'm a non-technical person, but my domain expertise in insurance, and then slowly grew into tech by teaching myself. I would love to know the same for everyone else. So drop that in the chat. After the session, I'm going to go back to the chat and see where most people are coming from. Oh, media and entertainment. We have a few media and entertainment, training and education. Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. Hopefully, what I teach today here in the next 45 minutes is going to be helpful for you to take and apply in all your whatever field you are from. So the goal of Saturdays are sacred, right? They're for family and fun. And if you're choosing to spend it with me, my singular goal is to make it worth your while, make these 45 minutes useful for you, and make sure that you take away not just theoretical knowledge, but hands-on. You're able to build something that is worth your time in the next 45 minutes hands-on. So let's get started. Cameras on, mic off. As many reactions and emojis you can put as I'm going through topics, that helps me, keeps me engaged. Um, Cameras on, I can see your nods. So that's helpful, your smiles, or maybe some frowns on your faces, and that tells me I didn't land the topic quite well and I need to do a better job of it. All of it is welcome. So thank you. Questions. If you have questions, please wait till there will be a section in the middle, but I really want to get to the hands-on part. I really want to spend a lot more time on the actual Claude and show you, walk you through co-work. So I might just take questions all the way at the end. But please hang on. I have no rush in leaving. So if it goes beyond 45 minutes for me to answer your questions, I'll be here and I'll be happy to answer any and all questions. Cool. Let's do this. So every session I run, because I'm a non-technical person, I don't really, I like to set it like this because I'm trying to help anyone. My basic understanding, my level set is that you all don't know how to code. So it's important to understand a few different things as we are transitioning from other domains and fields into an AI savvy field. These are four things that help me. These are my mental models, and that's why I share them in this structure every single session. So you can, if you were here last week and the week before, and if you're planning to join me in the next few weeks, this is the same structure you can expect. First part, we talk about mindset. What is the mental model shift? How do you switch the way you think about technology when it comes to AI and Claude? So what's the shift that we want to focus on today? Then we talk about a concept. So that can be a ML or an AI concept, a technical topic that I break down in a super non-technical way, very layman's terms. And I test this out by teaching the same concept to my eighth grader. And if he understands it, I know I can bring it here. So that's my process. Then we go into demo, the most exciting part of the session, which is I open up Claude and whatever it is, the topic of today, I walk you through it. It's only 45 minutes that we have today, and stuff moves really, really fast. So I have handouts that I share with you, that step-by-step guides that if you are not able to keep up with me as I do this on the screen, you can do so after the fact. In the next 24 hours, a recap email will go out to everyone. That email will have a quick summary of what we talked and all the materials. So all the handouts, all the demo guides that you can use and build your own step by step. If you choose to build it, please post on LinkedIn and tag me. I would really want to know how it's going, what you learned, if the handouts don't work for you, that helps me learn and improve. So please do share that. All right. Enough about all of that. Let's get started. So this is part 2 of a three-part Claude for Dummies series. Last week, the recording link is in the slide. If you didn't join me last week, I highly encourage you to go and watch that recording from last week. Last week, we started by giving Claude a brain, meaning we taught it. First, we understood how LLMs work, how they use prediction for the next words, and how context is important. For an LLM to do a good job of generating any content, it needs to understand the background information for it to do a better job. So we used an example that said, if I want to ask an LLM to write an essay on this topic that says, a cat sat on a bank, if you don't tell it what bank means, it's not going to know if it's a river bank or a financial bank or a plane turning or whatever. So the importance of telling it what bank means improves the essay that it's going to write. And that is called context. So we taught Claude the context, skills, connectors, and all of it, so that Claude finally knew your word, your role, your voice, and your standards. And then we used this to make an application where we taught the exact same things to Claude about your own boss. So we built your boss in Claude so that you can use Claude to vet things before you send it to your actual boss. So it's a thought partner. It can give you advice, feedback. It was a really good session. I got a lot of good feedback on it. People really were able to use it well. So if you haven't seen it, please go and watch that recording. That'll help set the context for this. But for now, hang here with me. We taught it context. Now we are gonna teach it how to do stuff. So we are gonna not just give it little tasks, we're gonna teach it how to do entire workflows. So we're gonna start by, instead of saying, write an essay, we're gonna tell it what it is that our big picture goal is, what we wanna accomplish, and we're gonna let it go to town, do its thing. And that's what agents do. So the mindset shift here is that you don't need to just automate individual tasks. You can chain those tasks and you can actually delegate the job to it. Instead of saying, do this, now do this, now do this, and you are constantly involved in directing Claude, you can actually, with agents, you can actually just tell it what your end goal is and it will decide what needs to be done, all the different steps, and it can execute on it. So, mindset shift I want you to take away this week is, most people think AI is about doing the same task faster. Of course it is. But if that's all you do, then you're gonna leave a lot on the table. So from the beginning, we said, don't just use it for search, use it for more, give it context so it can do a little bit more. It can do individual tasks. That's what we learned last time. This time we are saying, now level up. Don't just use it for individual tasks, but use it to automate your entire workflows. How to delegate, hand off work to Claude. And that is not just for software engineers where they have five agents coding in the background doing their full-time job while they just get to bed there. You and I can do that same thing. We can have a suite of agents that can do these things for us, that can run our life while we are in control of doing the real thing. Cool. Okay, so sounds really exciting, right? So let's see how we are going to do that. Couple of things. Let me actually, this part is going to be better explained. Let me stop sharing here for a second. This part is going to be better explained if we move to my. By the way, last week is the first time I tried my digital whiteboard and I got a lot of positive feedback. Although okay, you guys can see my screen now, which is fantastic. Let me. This always happens. I test it out for 15 minutes before the session, and when there is 100 and how many people watching me, it decides to do its own thing. So don't mind me. All right. AI agents, a quick trip down memory lane. You have automation. That's where we started. Um, Basically, here's you think in traditional automation you are thinking something and machine is actually doing it. The execution is what the machine is doing. So in the same cat sat on a bank, I want to write an essay example. You actually write the essay and you say, here's the essay, post it at 8 a.m. on Wednesday. No intelligence, it's purely scheduling. You wrote the essay, right? That's our automation. You think and it does. Then comes AI plus automation, which is what we see in 24, 25, 2024, 2025. You saw the fact that AI will do the task, you can define it. But you have to tell it exactly what to do. That's very similar to what we did last week, right? Making Claude into a boss. You can ask it questions, but basically AI will do the task. Um, AI does, but you define, you tell it what it needs to do. You give it context, you give it instructions, you give it prompts, and it will do what you ask it to do, right? So far, so good. So for the same essay example, in this case, you can tell AI, write an essay uh, about a cat sat on the bank. And in this case, bank means a river bank. And when it's done, post it at 8 a.m. on Wednesday. And it will do this for you. That's the world we are kind of today, where most people use AI this way right now, that you can tell it to do things, and then more than that, you may even just ask it to write the essay, and then you choose to copy and paste it and do the posting yourself. But if you are a little bit advanced, you might even automate the posting. But I'm here to tell you that you're still leaving. If you do this much automation, you are still leaving a lot on the table, because AI agents can now, you can simply give it a goal. So you can just say, my goal is to grow my Substack by 10% in 1 month. That's the goal. And AI is smart enough to take this goal, figure out what it needs to do so it can plan, it can research, so it can plan what different blogs I need to write. It can research more content about these topics. It can draft the blogs. It can wait for me to approve. So this is what we call a human in the loop, but wait for me to approve it. And once I approve, it can go ahead and do the actual posting. Of course, the setup is necessary. So, in order for it to plan and research from the right sources, I need to give it context. I need to give it all the different sources that I need to for it to research. I need to connect it to Google search or whatever other research platform I want it to use. For drafting, I need to connect it to my own Substack or Google Docs, whichever tool I want to use. For approval, I can ask it to send me a text or an email. So I need to connect it to either one of those. And then in order for it to post, I need to tell it give it my Substack credentials so it can post, right? All of this is possible with agentic AI capabilities today. Many people do it and use it. So let's talk about what are actual agents and how now we are going into our context space, right? So we're talking quickly about AI agents. And what are agents? You've all heard agents. Can you drop in the chat what you all think agents are? Just for fun. When somebody says, what is an AI agent? Can you explain it to an eighth grader what an agent is, and how would you explain it to an eighth grader? In one sentence, 2 words, whatever, metaverse, AR, VR. Okay. Act autonomously, yes. Assistant, yes. Bots that manage your workflow, all of that is actually very much on point. Um, Technically, agent is, or the core of an agent is an orchestration layer, meaning, can you all still see my screen? You can, right? Yeah. Okay. Agent core is an orchestration layer. What I mean, think about this core of the agent as a conductor in an orchestra. It tells all the different parts. It decides what different actions to take. So that's the core of the agent. And how it works is, for it to plan, you need to give it a goal. Once you have a goal, once you give it a goal, it is able to plan the work by using the memory it has, which is what the context is, right, that we said last time. So it is able to plan the work using the memory. And then once the work is planned, it can actually make tool calls. Tool calls is nothing but, in the previous screen, what I showed, right, to plan, to draft, it needs to make a connection to Google Docs. It needs to make a connection to Google Search. Tool calls are essentially different things that an agent can call, different tools in the agent's toolbox that it can leverage to get the job done. So this is things like looking at your calendar, um, using a calculator to do some calculations, using a code writer like Claude Code or Cursor, using a code writer. If you're doing your workflow or whatever it is that you're trying to automate, it's super technical and it needs to write code. An agent can actually ask a AI code writer to write the code for you. The other thing is search, and anything else that you can think of, drafting tools, things like that. So what an agent does, like say you gave it a goal that says, let's stick with the Substack example. So I gave it a goal. I want to grow my Substack by 10%. What it's gonna do is it's gonna go and first do a plan. So in order to make a plan, just like we humans plan our work, it's gonna see where is it today. So it's gonna look and see um, what kind of it's gonna look and see what's my current following, what is the 10% uptick in this going to look like. Now it has an end goal. Now it works backwards. So agents are primarily um, good at very deep in reasoning and planning. That's the main difference between non-agentic AI and agentic AI. They're very good at planning and reasoning and figuring out what steps need to happen in what order. So in this case, it will look at my Substack, figure out what the actual end number by the end of the month needs to be. Then it's gonna go and use its reflection capability. So reflection capability meaning under the hood, it's still a large language model. So it's going to look at its own training, all the knowledge that it has that either Anthropic gave it or OpenAI gave it, look at its own training and um, look at the example and do reflect on it to figure out what it needs to do. Then it's going to make a plan using a technique called chain of thought, step by step thinking, basically. Then, once it has a plan, it has the ability to self critique that plan and be like, does it look good? Should I improve this plan? And it can keep iterating until it feels good. And then it will break it down into sub goals, meaning that in order to go from say 1,000 to 1,100 followers on Substack in 1 month, I need to post once every 3 weeks. So or three times a one 3 times a week. So then it's going to create goals for it to research topics, then it'll create goals for write individual topics. Then it'll create a separate goal to draft, a separate goal to create images and things like that. And while it's doing that, it's constantly using its short-term memory and long-term memory, meaning that what it's trained by the actual LLM as well as the context that you gave it. The additional information about who you are, what domain you are writing about, what's your target audience, what works in the actual Substack tool as well, and things like that. And then in doing so, it's going to use these tools to do the actual job. And when everything is done, the fourth angle here that happens is the action. So it executes on this goal by taking several actions. So it made the plan, now it's acting. This is where co-work comes into play. For our example, the action taking happens um, in inside co-work. Okay. This is a super sort of high level understanding of how agents work. And if you're non-technical and if you're using AI to leverage it for your own productivity, but you're not involved in actually building agentic AI products for the market, this level of understanding is sufficient. You don't need to know everything else that goes with it, the technical nuances of this that you might hear about online, because this is really all that matters. This is if you understand this, 90% of your job is done. Okay. The reason I say this is because every time I'm preparing a lesson, I tend to look online and see what's available. And my hope usually is to either add more value than generally what's available online, or explain it in a more simpler, easy to understand manner than what's available online. And for this one specifically for agents, when I was doing my research, I found that a lot of the um, a lot of the material or the content online was highly technical, designed for AI product managers or AI developers, and it's not as simplified as it should be for people like us who want to use it in a no-code manner. So hopefully this is helpful. Okay, we can soon be going into the actual working session. So let me share my screen again. Everything that I did on the Blackboard is actually also in the slides. So if you didn't need to make notes, I forget to tell you every time that everything that I show is in the slides. But for future, just know, don't need to worry about taking notes. All of the materials prepped for you. Okay, so what does it actually mean for you? The only thing, if the technique for agents, if you only take away this technical, forget about all the technicalities, but if you only take away one thing, take this slide away. So what is an agent? An AI agent is in terms of Claude, is Claude with a goal. So your regular Claude chat, but it has a goal and it can execute, it can plan, and it has the ability to reason and act. You don't need to give it step-by-step instructions. It can reason through the task. It can also self-correct. So if it knows that it got the task wrong, it can self-heal, self-correct, and it can decide what to do next. It can decide which out of a chain of tasks need to come first and last, without you constantly watching. Um, and so what does it mean? The difference between the tool that you use and a colleague that you delegate. That's in a nutshell. Like if you're traditional SaaS or software as a service that was sold before AI era was always tools for humans to do the job better. That's all it was. If you look at Excel, if you look at any CRM, if you look at any other software that you need to use for your own job, um, you know that those pieces of software were not designed to do the job. They were designed specifically for you to do the job better and easier and faster. Hence, they had extreme amounts of setting page, lots of variety of different configurations that you can tailor to make it your own. AI products or things like cowork or AI agents are actually designed to do the job. Entire workflows, research, draft, review, post. It can run with minimal hand holding. And that's the leverage that I want you to start using from today. So Claude's AI, no code AI agents are what Cowork is. And it's an interface where you can assign goals, set parameters, and let Claude work. Um, so that's what we are going to be building. Okay. Uh, you should have, oops, okay. You should have the link to the step-by-step guide, but don't worry about the guide for now. I'm gonna open Claude and we're gonna go into Claude and start using Claude. Let me, how far are we? Okay, we're half an hour in. That's perfect. We have time. Okay, can you see? All right,
Yes, we
so
can.
in Claude, if you have the Claude Pro plan, you will be able to see. Pro plan is the $20 plan. That's the cheapest that will have let you have cowork. So you can go here in the cowork. This is the cowork tab. A quick walkthrough of the different areas, right? So in cowork, you have the projects. Field. You can, we built projects last time and you can actually import that project here. Here you have to talk to Claude about the goal. What is the goal? Then you have connectors. The connectors can be invoked from here. So you can see I have Google Drive, Granola, Claude and Chrome, and my Slack seems to be disconnected right now. You can add any and all connectors. There is a lot of, we did the connectors last session, but there is a whole suite of different connectors that you can search and you can use. In here, you can browse connectors, and Anthropic has hundreds of different connectors. You can just search by your the search button here. But essentially, connectors translating to that slide are the tools that on the left side that we had, that all the different tools. So you can have calendars. I have Google Drive, Google Calendar, a lot of Microsoft Office. Like if you are Office user, you can actually, mine doesn't have, but I have connected Word here and a lot of other tools that you use. So connectors are that. Instructions, you are going to be putting your instructions in Cowork. Here, basically, they're standing rules for Claude to follow every single time. And then Cowork will run daily and you'll get the output. So let's do an example together. We are going to build, and I picked this example because no matter what field you are in, whether you are in music and production, fintech, sales, whatever, I think having a morning brief every morning that summarizes all your emails and Slack messages is useful, it's helpful. So I use this generic example to fit more or less all the different domains. But essentially, building your morning brief, what it does is it's going to read your emails, calendars, and different folders, whatever you ask it to use overnight, and it will drop a structured one pager. If you have Slack connected, it will drop it, send you a Slack message before your workday starts. You can also customize it to send you an email instead. Or if you connect Telegram, you can ask it to, and you have an account, you can ask it to send you like a Telegram message or WhatsApp message, however, right? So here's the goal prompt. What we're doing is we're gonna give this thing a goal. So we're gonna say, oops, okay. So I wrote the prompt here for you, which says every morning before 7 a.m., read my Gmail inbox, Google Calendar for today, and any documents flagged or shared with me in the last 24 hours in Google Drive. Then produce a structured one-page morning brief and post it to my Slack channel. I created my own morning brief. I do this a lot for my work. So I don't have Slack. This is my personal laptop that I use for training. But if you have work laptop and you have, like, if your employer gives you access to Claude as part of work, you are totally okay to just do this. So let me just, I don't know why this is not. So every morning before 7 a.m., read my Gmail inbox. So whenever you write instructions, you can write any instructions here. The key for you to make sure is that whatever you're asking it to do, it needs to have the connector. So on this version of Claude, I don't have Gmail connected. So I would go ahead and actually connect my Gmail like this, and it's gonna basically take me to the sign-in steps here. I don't want to be doing my username and password, but essentially it brings you to this Gmail connection tab, and you just log in like any other. You enter your username and password. Just know that when you do this, Claude will be able to read everything in your email. So if you have banking details or if you have stuff like that in your email, just be mindful of what you're giving this thing access to. Then use a different email or something like that. I do this morning brief at work because the Claude instance is inside our firewall. It's safe and it's secure. So it's okay to give it access to work related. It's company approved and then it's easier to do. Okay. Um, for if I was to do it for, like, say, the teaching and training work that I do through Maven, I have a separate email that I would connect that only has context about my life's Maven aspect. You can do that as well. Essentially, and then you're going to say, do it for Google Calendar for today and any documents and so forth. So let me see if I can actually do this faster. I don't want to have you guys see. Okay, there we go. And then make sure that the one-page morning brief is posted to the actual Slack channel. Now, uh, You are going to copy the instructions from here, and you can add the instructions in here directly. So you can ask it to, you're telling it to the format of how the morning brief needs to be structured. So list today's meetings with times and who's attending, flag any back-to-back conflicts, email priorities, documents to review, focus recommendations, stuff like that. This is whatever your instructions are, whatever you want it to do, however you want this morning brief to be. You're basically giving it the goal and you're telling it what the structure in which you want the output to be. Cool. Now you are going to in the Dropbox, I gave some examples in the actual handout. I've given examples for sales, ops, marketing, or if you're just a people manager, on how you can use these type of things. So here's a setup checklist. So make sure that your Gmail is connected. Make sure your Google Calendar is connected, make sure your Google Drive is connected, and make sure your Slack is connected. Once this is done, then you want the output to go, you want to create a folder in your local computer where you, if you're generating content and you want it to have a project, you can have a folder on your local computer and have all of this content go there. In not last week's session, but the session before that, we created a folder on our local computer where I showed you how to add the files that for Claude to know who you are. So about me, the goal, about my company, those files. So you can either do that, you can just create a new folder with instructions and files for this particular project on your local desktop, or you can import the project that we created in our chat last week. So you can bring in projects from chat. We had some test projects that we had created. You can just bring those in from chat, and what it will do is it will just, you can use the same project folder through regular chat where you just want to do information, research, drafting, things like that. And you can also have it take action through Cowork. You can collect everything in one spot by doing this. When you keep memory on, it's going to take token, but it's going to make the context a lot more. It's going to remember what it did yesterday and the day before and the day before. And as you, if you don't like certain instructions and you give it suggestions on, from tomorrow onwards don't do this, or from tomorrow onwards I don't want you to include emails that are coming from Maven in my morning brief, it will remember those instructions going forward. So when you keep the memory on, you're basically making it self-learn, and learn, customize, personalize as per your own liking. And then when I do this, basically I'm asking it to reuse the same project. And when I go create, it opens up a new page. So basically what we did so far is we made sure all the tools are connected. Then we gave it the brief like you would tell an intern how to do this work. So you gave it the goal and you gave it instructions on what good looks like. Then now you are going to set up the schedule. So here you can add any and all instructions about your um, preference. So you can say always used future tense, always used past tense. I like you to make it short and succinct. Don't use dashes. Don't, whatever personalization preference that you have, you can add in the instructions section here, and you can set up a schedule here. So let's call this daily briefing, and whatever the instructions are, you can now do it manually, do it hourly, but because this is a daily briefing, we can set the frequency. And what this does is it will trigger the workflow, do everything that you told it in the goals at that um, frequency every day. So if I wanted to go and look at all my emails at 7 a.m. in the morning, I can change this here. And once I gave it the project, I can choose the model. Uh, Model selection. Quick note on the model selection. The more heavier lift that you want, like if you wanted to do some really complex reasoning, or if you wanted to do like documenting like a whole legal case or something like that, use the Opus series of models. They are the most heavy lift complex, but they use a lot of tokens. And the Sonnet is the smallest model. So for something like this, like just looking at emails and creating a summary, it's not super complex task. It doesn't require too much firepower. So we can even just go Haiku or Sonnet, whichever. And if when the output is not up to your preference, you can actually try changing the models. If it seems like too basic, if your LLM or your response seems to kind of not intelligent, you can try changing the model and see if it gives you a more appropriate. There are other tricks, like you can try improving the instructions if it's obvious to you what's going wrong. But basically, you can. This is another little tip that you can go ahead and do that. So, and basically now I saved it. So my daily briefing is created. Once you see this active button, you know that it is active and it will run on its own next day in the morning. Um, and that's all there is to it. When it runs and it sends you the information, if you've done the connections, it will send you the information, and you can tweak it, improve it. First couple of times, maybe you need to improve the prompts or structure a little bit more, give it more instructions on don't include these types of emails or that types of emails. It's pretty smart on its own to not include any spam messages and things like that. But if you want it further filtered, you can give it, and then it just runs, and it will give you a daily morning briefing every day. There are few other sort of use cases that you can use this AI agent for, or you can build other simpler AI agents where you can. There are a few things here, a few things that I do. I talk to a lot of customers as part of my job, so I have it hooked up to my granola, which is a call transcript, and I have a task that says every day. Summarize all the call conversations from customers that I've had and output an updated top feature list. And I have a running list of most asked features for my product from the customers. And it looks through new transcripts, and it's a constant verification that what my team is working on is the right thing to be working on, and that's what people are asking for. And normally, to do that, it takes a lot of cognitive effort on my part. And as I'm talking to customers, I'm making pen and pencil paper notes. So it takes at least an hour. First of all, I don't do this every day if I have to myself do it. And if I did, it would at least take me an hour every day. So these types of things I'm sure you will have in your work as well, where it's stuff that falls off your radar, even though it's high value to do because it takes so much time to do that you don't do it. And it's a simple thing that if you can build an agent, even if it's not 100% perfect, it gets you from 0 to 80 pretty seamlessly, pretty easily. And the only hurdle here is to make sure that everything is connected properly. One thing I will tell you from personal experience using Claude a lot is that the connections often fail. Like my Gmail almost gets disconnected every other day. So I have to be a little bit mindful of making sure it's connected so that it does the job, but it will notify you that it's disconnected. So just keep that in mind. I'm hoping Anthropic fixes these small little problems, but even with the problem, it's the time and energy it saves, and is the value is a lot, at least for me. Like, there is no way I can do as many multiple things that I do in my day without automating several such small parts of my day. So let me go back to my slides here 1 second. um so now that we have seen what um Now, okay, so we seen it in the slides. You're going to have the link to the actual takeaway. Now, I want to talk to you quickly about the cohort. So my 4 week structured cohort. So we do these. These are great, quick little nitbits that I can teach you, little tips and tricks that I can teach you in 45 minutes. But to really do this well and focused and kind of have your own fully autonomous system, and be at a level where you can be the go-to person in your company or organization that's AI savvy, and it takes a lot longer, little bit more time, one-on-one time with me, little bit more hands-on things, and more hand holding with troubleshooting, and things like that. So I've put together a 4 week course where you will custom build your own practical system for your own particular use case. And I have more ability to hand hold you through. If you get stuck or your system doesn't work or fail, then we can help troubleshoot through it. So here's the plan. Basically, we start with mapping where AI fits your own real work. So instead of me giving generic examples, you work on your own examples, and I work hand in hand with you. Then we build your own specific Claude context. So all the MD files about you, about your boss, about your company, about your job, about your domain, all of these we build tailored to your role. Then we build skills and agents that are very aligned to your day-to-day job. And we can build those in a way that you can scale and keep using those beyond the 4 weeks that you're with me. And more importantly, you know how to build new ones. As your job evolves, tomorrow you get promoted, you know how to build more for that job. And basically put all of this together and come up and do a showcase. So you can then have a system ready that you can do webinars, uh, training sessions, all of that at your work to then be known as the go-to person. So that's the structure in the 4 weeks. Discounts are dropping every week. So if this is something on your radar, I would highly encourage um, you to sign up. It's the cheapest today, and next week it's going to be a little bit more pricey, and so forth until we get to the cohort date of July 20th. In and out, 4 weeks, real outcomes. Okay, that was all about the course. I really hope to see many of you in that, so we can work with your specific tailored examples. And then, like I mentioned earlier, this is part 2 of a 3-part Claude for Dummies series. So we started with giving Claude a brain. Then today we learned how to delegate it with one AI agent. Next week, we're gonna learn how to delegate it multiple AI agents. So full workflow. We'll take one workflow and build 2 or 3 different agents, and learn how to make agents talk to each other. So basically, we are building a 3 layered cake, and next week is the last layer of it. So do join me. If you use any of my content, any of my handouts to build anything, I request you to please tag me on LinkedIn. It's very motivating for me to see if people are using this. I spend 7 to 10 hours every week preparing all of this material, and even few people use it. that's my ROI. So please do tag me on LinkedIn. I write about a lot of this stuff, products management related stuff as well on Substack, so you can follow me there. I will see you next Saturday, 9 a.m. PST. And now, so that's all I wanted to say. Now we can get to the more fun part, which is Q&A. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and open it up for questions. Please raise your hand so I can see you if you have questions. I'm all ears. Mohalis, go ahead.
Yes, this is a discussion that we're having. I think is the longest thread right now, but trying to connect multiple Gmails. I tend to try to just set up a filter to forward some Gmails to one central Gmail, but I can't pronounce them. Murali is also saying that maybe you could use MCPs to set up a secondary Gmail, but whenever I took a look, it seems to tell me that you could only have one Gmail MCP. I have the same thing
Yeah.
with calendar, but I think that's more difficult.
No, you're right. And I use the same process that you said. I tend to put forwarding to one particular Gmail. I do that because I use my main Gmail for a lot of my personal stuff and I don't want everything available to Claude. So I put automated formatting from one purpose-built Gmail account that I have for Claude to use. Multiple Gmail connection is, I'm hoping they will start to enable that in MCP, but last I checked, it's not there. I do want to say for the rest of you here, if you don't know what MCP is, definitely join me in the next class because that's something that I'm going to cover in the next one.
And sorry, one more question.
Yeah.
The How about calendar? Because you can't really forward an event to another one. I have my business calendar, my personal calendar, and I switch between them, but I can't seem to connect both to briefings or anything.
So the way I get around calendar is I create two briefings, which is kind of tedious again, but I have two daily briefings, one for personal calendar and one for, first of all, for work related stuff, it's a completely different laptop and an enterprise cloud account. So that's not an issue for me for the other work that I do, but for training and all my teaching work, as well as my personal stuff and my kids' activities and calendars, I have two daily briefings set up that it looks at. I would much love if there was a way to connect like my Apple Calendar to this. And the Apple Calendar has all the different ones, right? But it's not, I have not yet found a way to do that.
Okay, thank you. I am thinking of opening up another Claude account, but free to do some outside
But
other things.
yeah, you can do that. You probably don't, for just for calendar, you probably don't need a separate Claude account. You can just create a separate daily briefing and point that to a but I don't know if Cowork is available in the free.
It's not. Yeah.
It's not, yeah. I so you'd be spending, I mean, even with two times $20 a month, I think if you really use it, it will pay for itself.
Thank you.
Yeah. Lucy, go ahead.
Thanks, Kiro, for the presentation. Really enjoyed it. I just have a question because I've actually been dabbling with Claude Code. And I guess my one question was, what do you think the main differences between using them? I know everyone says Claude Code is like for developers, but I've done a similar process where I've set up a local folder, put my instructions on there, told it what I want it to do, and then it can go and then connect to my drive. So is there like
So
a big difference?
The main difference I find is Claude Cowork is a lot easier to operate. So if you don't know how to work in CLI, because Claude Code in the actual desktop interface has limitations. If you really want to leverage Claude Code, you really have to go to terminal, and that black screen can tend to be super scary for many people. And knowing the actual commands for the terminal and knowing how to point the terminal to a folder, as basic stuff as that, can be quite daunting to people. That's the main thing I think. And if you are going to go to Claude Code, then if you're gonna go through that effort of setting up terminal and setting up your own folders and everything, then using it for a daily briefing is kind of under selling it. I use Claude Code for more complex things and drafting. I use Claude Code if I want to use chained skills. Like if I want to use a lot of different skills in one project and I'm doing a lot of heavy lifting, more so for my work related stuff than my personal or educational stuff, because I feel like building 80% of what I need can be sufficiently done using co-work.
Yeah. No, that was helpful because I mean that's what I mean. I was just like, well, God, maybe what I've done I could have just done in co-work. And I use the app version of Claude Code, so it's not as black, scary terminal, but I understand what you're saying about the commands because sometimes I put a forward slash and I'm like, I don't know what I'm meant to put here. Sorry, I do have one more question, which I found
Yeah.
quite interesting. So when I saw you do Claude Co-work, I liked that you were able to connect to a project within Claude Chat. And I don't think you can
Yes.
do that with code, can you? With Claude Code, or can you?
No. No,
Right.
code you
So that's
cannot. So
helpful.
that's probably another
Exactly.
reason.
And then my only question segue to that is because you connected your Claude Cowork to that project, what happens? So does the outcome, for example, your daily brief, does it go into that project chat or does it come out to Cowork or where does it go? That's kind
So
of my next.
whatever your instructions are, so I have a few, like the other example that I gave, right, where it summarizes and updates a specific document. That
Mhm.
portion, like my customer conversation, it summarizes and updates my running list of feature requests. That I ask it to output in the same exact Google Doc, and it just goes and overrides the existing Google Doc if there is any updates needed to be made. So it doesn't create a new Google Doc every day, it just updates the existing one. You can do it that way. You can also like for something like daily briefing, the work daily brief I have, I run it every night, not in the morning. I run it at 4 p.m. every day, saying, summarize my day and tell me what are the key takeaways for tomorrow, what I need to focus on, my top three needle movers for tomorrow, so I can plan the day one day before. But that one, I just have it sent to my Slack, my work Slack, for me directly. I created a channel with just me, and it just sends that in that Slack channel. And I have that Slack on my phone, on my laptop, so I can easily see it. If I
Yeah,
give Claude Cowork instructions to send that to me in the form of an email, it can email me.
yeah, yeah,
I can also say, put my daily briefing in this Word document every single day. And it
yeah,
does that as well. I have one for where I have one-on-ones with my reports. I have one document for each one, and I have a co-work session that says every time I have a one-on-one, take the summary notes and put them in a Google Doc, because I don't want to 6 months from now when I have to do performance reviews, I don't want to have to go sift through 500 granola transcripts, right, on what they
yeah,
have and
yeah,
all
yeah.
of that. So,
So, yeah.
yeah.
So those outputs are great because those are things that have just made me think about as well. But I'm just curious, when you gave it access to the project, what does that do? Does it read, does it mean it can read whatever's in that project and take context from it?
Yes, it can.
Okay.
It can read
Okay,
the
cool.
About Me MD files. It can read the project
Great.
MD files, things like that.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's what I just wanted to make sure as well. Is that what it actually does? Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. That was really helpful.
Another thought that came to mind, the main difference between co-work and code, and why I use code for heavy lifting stuff, is code can actually work on your computer directly, like it has direct machine access, and it can modify files, it can organize your things, make changes. Co-work is more like a virtual machine because you're connecting it. So it will connect to Google Drive and it can do things in Google Drive. It can do these edits and things like that. It runs a little bit different than code. Code can actually do a lot more on the local machine itself.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. Thank you for that differentiation.
Okay,
Thank you.
no problem. Any other questions? Mary, go ahead.
Hi, Kayuri. Thank you so much for doing these sessions. I had an earlier question when you were doing the diagram and you were talking about the thinking, planning of the agents and
Mhm.
the reflection. I just wanted to know a little bit more about the memory. So we're connecting a Claude to a project folder, and we're giving it some instructions and some docs so that it can kind of understand what we do and give it context. So is that the context, is that persistent across all projects? Or like, is it every time we do something, are we restarting the instructions? And
So
how does it keep this memory? And does it increase costs or anything like that?
yeah, so let me explain. So the memory part, right? Project level memory is where you can put project MD files. So in the project folder, if you put stuff, it is only going to work in that project. So that's the project specific memory. But in the instructions, so let me share my screen. In the actual instructions, you can put in cowork itself in the instructions here. If you put the actual instructions, it's going to you can give memory at both level. Like you can tell cowork to have memory that is for everything, that is like context about you, right? Who you are, that doesn't change from one workflow to the next. And you can do workflow wise memory. For workflow wise, you can put it in project. It doesn't involve include that much your token cost for having maintained. The only problem is eventually it's always suggested to be keep it short because it reads every time it has to trigger something, it will read those instructions. So that's where the cost comes in. So keep it short and succinct is going to keep it more focused.
Great.
Okay.
And then for the upcoming course, what projects will we be working on if we're interested in taking it this summer?
So everyone will work on the first week. You're gonna figure out, you're gonna do like a laundry list of your individual use cases, workflows. I have frameworks that I share with you in the first week. So you will come up with the project that you wanna work for. So what you build is going to be different than say what Galina builds because you work in completely different industries.
Thank you.
Okay, Mihir, go ahead, and then we can wrap up. We are already way over time.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. This is very
Mhm.
helpful. My question is, if I want to manipulate some task, like manipulating email, let's say I want to clear my mailbox of spam, can I do that with Cowork, or I need Cloud Code?
Um, in that's an interesting question. You can definitely do it in Claude Code, but you can also do it using Claude Cowork. So you will need to give it instructions to read and write in your emails for Cowork, and then you can say, go in and delete all the emails from X person and so forth. You can do that. It can also send emails on your behalf and stuff.
So I have to individually prescribe the emails that needs to be deleted. I cannot
Or
just.
you can say, I mean, for it to not delete, you could say, go in this email and delete everything, right? And it will delete everything. But if you just say, go and delete all the spam messages, it may not know enough context to figure out what is spam and what is not. So the best way to do it is go and delete all the emails from this company or that company or whatever that looks like to from those types of clear context steps. If you give, then it's less likely to just delete stuff that you don't want it to delete.
Or conversely, I can say keep this and delete everything else, I guess. That's
You can do that as well.
okay.
Yeah.
Got
Yeah.
it. Thank
Mhm.
you very much.
Yeah, no problem. Hanif, go ahead.
Hi, actually, I had a question regarding the use case of the agents and the monthly fees. A small question actually. So we've been talking about how we can do automation using in Slack and emails and all that. Is there any other use case like say, let's say in some tech part or some task that you might wanna analyze this chunk of data every day, download these files every day and just do a very basic statistical analysis on these things. Like something like not related to emails and the professional part, but like more a bit more technical and stuff.
Yeah,
Thank you.
it can, like, for example, it can, I mentioned research synthesis, right? It can also do a whole bunch of OCR related things. So it can, if you put like all your expense receipts in one folder, it can take different receipts, screenshots, emails spread across different places like Google Drive folder, Gmail, and it can extract all of that data and normalize the formats and generate a functional, like a usable Excel file. You can give it two different Excel files or tabs and ask it to find duplicates, those types of things it can totally do.
Okay. Okay, got it. And what would I think it would be like we would have a more higher token consumption, right? In that case.
Yes, definitely. The more it's reading, it's consuming all the tokens more, right? So yeah,
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
yeah, no problem. Neha, go ahead.
Hey, Kerry. Thank you so much
Hey,
for the session, and I'm really sorry I'm asking the question so late.
no
When you
problem.
were explaining agentic AI and what it really means, you had mentioned these four components, and one was memory. You had mentioned long-term and short-term memory. What, if you could maybe elaborate really quickly on that, and how does that affect our ways of working with agentic AI? And what could be possibly maybe a use case of using a long-term and a short-term memory?
Yeah, so long-term memory is the persistent storage that is who you are, your about MD files, your past interaction, your past learning across different sessions. Like, when we say Claude knows me now. Everything that we learned last week, giving Claude context about who you are, how you like to write, what your job is, who your boss is, what is their preferences, all of that is long-term memory. And short-term memory is relevant to this context, this instruction. So in our case, long-term memory is knowing who I am and everything about my job. And short-term memory is everyday day-to-day email, figuring out what's in my daily briefing today and what's going to be in my daily briefing tomorrow. So in the chat context, it's immediate temporary context used in that specific conversation. It may not remember. So if you've used, one example is if you use chat for different things, right? You may use it for fashion advice. And you may also have a new chat that is used for resume building, for example, and something else for soccer, FIFA scores or whatever. You will see that it doesn't translate. Like on the FIFA one, it's not going to bring in any context of your fashion sense or your style. That short-term memory, it's constrained to that particular chat, that particular session. And then long-term memory is it knows Neha lives in this state or whatever else you decided to give it context for.
And how does it figure out like, what has to be long-term memory and what is going to be short-term memory?
So long-term memory is you put it in the MD files. If you were here with me last week, I showed how to put the long-term memory using MD files in the actual project and point Claude to those files. That becomes your identity, your personalization for Claude. So it knows that those are long-term memory, and short-term memory is constrained per session. It just doesn't cross-pollinate session level information between one chat to the next chat. So it's just that's how they designed all of these LLMs to it. It will constrain it in that chat session.
Oh, thank you very much. I
Yeah.
wasn't there for the previous
You
session, so
can
recording
you
maybe.
can translate that. So you can say to Claude in one chat session that I'm going to create a new chat session, compress our conversation in this chat session and give me a summary so I can paste it in the new chat session as a starting point, and it will do that. That's one way to cross-pollinate that information.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. All right, my friends, we are very much over time and I have been keeping you away from fun and family. So don't let me stand in the way of your fun. Thank you so much for joining. I really hope to see you next week. We're going to do MCPs and we are going to do multi-agentic workflows. So see you next Saturday. Thank you so much.